it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Simmer Down with Shawn Simpson.
Brady Tkachuk with the tip. His 100th goal in his 300th game, and it's a Gordie Howe hat trick to tie it.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Well, hello there. It is high noon in the nation's capital for all of our great listeners around the world and for a number of fans that have reached out to us over in Stockholm at 6 p.m. It's already dark, probably on a day off here, enjoying a little bit of dinner, maybe a couple of pops. Welcome to a nice little Friday edition, and we'll talk some Sens, we'll talk some hockey, and hey, we'll just simmer down for the next hour. Hope you're tuning in live, and if you're not, of course, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're so excited to wrap up week 2 here. Had some great guests this week. Nick Kyprios, of course, will end up joining us later in the show at 12:20. But of course, want to welcome in my wingman and my usual co-host, Mr. Justin Murray from good old Gatineau.
Yeah, how we doing?
How are you doing on this Friday, Justin?
Good. Headed to a concert later in Oshawa, the house that John Tavares built.
Nice.
John party. So had to head there right after this. And today's a good day too, because I think most kids in their teens, they watch maybe movies like Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. But Hockey Central at noon was my thing. I watched it all the time with Brian and my dad. And so to have Kipper on here today at noon is pretty cool.
Yeah, and pretty cool how it intertwines. I was thinking that today. If you go back to Nick Kyprios, I knew him from junior hockey. One of the rare waiver claims of the National Hockey League back in the day was you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to take people off waivers. They had recallable waivers. Bit of a fight between Philadelphia and Washington. And in that picture in the back, when the Kipper broke into the National Hockey League, was coached by your grandfather. Then, of course, coached by your uncle, Doug McLean, who we see in those beautiful glasses off to my left, or the left, your right, behind Rod Langway. So, it all ties in. And boy, the relationships from back then led to Doug getting the job in Columbus as a general manager. Nick had a great TV career. So, always fun to pick up with the Kipper. And he had a great career, nice run, and has his own little show still on Sportsnet.
I'd love to hear what he has to say. So
give me a little scoop on the concert, though. I'm not familiar with the brand, the name. What do we got?
John Party. He's kind of like I would say upper second tier in country. He's a lot of fun. It should be a good party. Okay. Smaller venue, so it's sold out. It's been sold out for a while. So head there with a couple buddies and my cousin, and go.
Are you staying in the Schwa?
Yeah, staying in the Schwa. I don't know how that will be. I didn't even stay there whenever I was scouting. I would just drive right by. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll find some fun though.
Oh, exactly. Actually, I played a year there. I mean, you kind of cross over. Maybe if you head over to some of the other areas, not as rough, but no, always a good spot. Great hockey spot. And hey, the people there like to have some fun, so it'll be a pretty rowdy crowd. I'm sure you'll end up having a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how are we feeling waking up on a Friday as far as the Sens go? Because this is kind of the interesting of I'm trying to get my head around on. I'm not per se a fan, although we watch it closely and I enjoy it. And you're watching yesterday, and then people say, well, do you consider that a loss, a victory? And then I thought to myself, Justin, if you're working for a team, or I guess playing for a team, or even you're a fan of a team, when you wake up today, and the fact that it was on kind of the global scale and in Stockholm, I still think you wake up feeling glass half full. That was not pretty what happened yesterday, but it's a hell of a lot better if you had lost that game in overtime or regulation or in the shootout for that matter. Hey, you're still back to 500 as a hockey club. Yeah.
I mean, the end result, great. How you got there, not so great. Great at times, but I mean, it's just frustrating because you score 4 goals and you think this is the perfect opportunity to really just shut it down. And I don't mean sit back, but it's all about playing smart and managing the puck. And the first goal, Chickering could have got that deep. Then there's no goal. Second goal off the player and in, fine. It is what it is. Third goal, neutral zone turnover. You could have just easily been a little harder on the puck, just deflect that in or something. But there's no need for a goal to turn up on that. And then Jarventi obviously falling down, creates an open lane, not a great stick in front of the net, little soft on the D-zone coverage there. So all things that you should just know by now. And I know it's not getting harped on by the coaching staff, but it's we're up 4-0, guys. Let's just can we not play properly? Can we not just care a little bit? Like if I was up 4-0 and we weren't playing great all year in our own zone, I'd be like, okay, let's settle down here. Let's prove that we can do this. Hold this off. Let's win 4-1, 4-2 even, and we'll be happy. But then no, we got to give up 4 and make the game an adventure. And it's always an adventure with these Sens. if you're a fan in Sweden, awesome, great to watch. If you're the coaching staff, you're a little pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the part of, I can remember going to World Championships games in probably the mid 90s. And this was a case that happened an awful lot where you would have, I think, North American players go over to the World Championships. And I can remember sitting with fans in Finland, Sweden, Czech Republic, all over the place. One of the things they'd look at and say, come on, this guy can't play in the National Hockey League. He's no good. I mean, there were players that went over in the 05 lockout and previous lockouts where fans in Russia were like, they said that the guy was homesick, wanted to come home, Justin. Reality was he was no good. We don't see that. We see yesterday, that is a lot of skill on both sides. It's high octane. It's back and forth. And from the Sens perspective, a few things. I think 4-0 leads. I'm not going to get into the worst leads in hockey kind of a cliche talk, but I will say this. It's a lot like football. I don't expect that would be the equivalent of going up 28-0 at the half. So to me, there's going to be a bit of a letdown in a sense of, where you're going. And also to the Sens side, it wasn't like they were playing great previous to that.
No,
I mean, they were opportunistic. Reimer wasn't great, but there's going to be a lull. But what has to go off, and this is where mentally and when the habits are not in place, from an Ottawa Senators perspective, when the first goal goes in, then all of a sudden it is a bit of a wake-up call. Even the second goal, then all of a sudden maybe it's a timeout. It's something to feel to get away from that checklist of we've got to go back to playing properly. But when they don't have those things in place, Justin, everything relates back to bad habits. And then the other part you're dealing with yesterday, which I think is a factor, anytime you get into a sequence like this that you don't have anything to fall back on, there were a lot of tired hockey players on that ice yesterday. And when that part happens, my, oh my, all bets are off as to how it's going to react, how it's going to play out. And then you just completely feel like the sky is falling. And it looked like from the players, and it's only the video, but I do a lot as far as kind of people watching. It felt like a ton of vacillation. That's what it really felt like from the hockey club. Everybody was kind of looking around for answers and nobody had any.
No, and I wonder, like obviously Norris said Alfie was a lot just being positive on the bench, maybe not saying a whole lot, but always positive. So you wonder how much that played in to get that final goal in overtime and just stick with it, even though you're just let in 4 in a row, because you could probably get pretty down on yourself if that's the case. It's frustrating because this is a team that needs to take the next step. And we can't just keep saying, well, they won, they squeaked that one out, because good teams don't do that. And if you want to take the next step, you need to play right. And when you're up 4-0, there's going to be the other team's probably going to take it to you a little more. That's just natural. But that doesn't mean you cannot manage the puck, play smart, and just understand where you are in the game and where you are on the ice, and just not allow a turnover, not allow, why are you taking a chance at 4-0 to go across the ice and only 2 things could come of it, a really good play or a pretty bad play.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it's the high risk of that. Just get that puck deep. And and I guess they're not being told, but at some point too, it's on the players as well to just understand, have some awareness of what the score is, everything going on in the game, just make it easier on yourselves. I don't know why you want to make it so tough on your own.
Well, yeah, and that is into it. And again, I don't think Detroit again. I'd say Detroit. I'm going to go a little more on the personnel side. Larkin, first of all, what a treat to watch. Him and Stützle, world-class players. One of the things, and this is probably the Steve Yzerman effect, Larkin now wants the puck. Where there were times a few years ago, Justin, I'd watch him and kind of wonder, he and Stützle, worth the price of admission. Not sold on DeBrincat. Certainly Raymond's going to be a star. After that, they got a lot of players in their system. Sider's outstanding. It was Reimer yesterday. So I look more personnel, where the Sens, it is kind of the finished product. And as you go through some of these things, the part that I think for anybody, and this isn't rocket science, quite simply, when you're looking around and facing the puck in your own zone, and a couple of the goals there with Drew and Stützle coming over to the wrong side in the mass chaos. Yeah. But I'll get back to a couple of points here, and we'll play a little clip, not right now, of DJ Smith. I just want to address the whole Alfie thing. And first of all, having Alfie around, the guy's not stupid. And when he comes in, and we talked about this yesterday, I didn't see anything on the bench. And I'm not trying to take away. The players are going to give you lip service. They're going to talk about how great it is. And of course, it's great to have Alfie around. I didn't see him do anything on the bench. And I mean that in a sense of he knows it's not his team to coach. He is basically down on one end. It's really awkward. So this idea that Alfie calmed them or anything else is a bunch of bullshit. And they want to throw it out. And there's nothing negative, Just. I don't mean that against Alfie. but they need to cross that over. Alfie needs to be involved. Alfie needs to be coaching. And I know he's watching from up top, and you've watched this team, and it feels like between Alfie and Staios and everybody that they want to give DJ Smith every chance. But you can't sit behind that bench yesterday, which is different. I've never been a coach before, but I've been behind a bench a few times. You can't watch that mass chaos yesterday and not after the game say to yourself, first of all, just Shawn Simpson, Ottawa, Canada, one of my fun things I used to say on the radio, Justin, you can't sit and watch what happened yesterday. And I thought how quiet it went on the bench. I thought how quiet it was on the ice. And all I can do is watch off TV how quiet it was on the bench, where there didn't appear to be any reaction whatsoever, as it was 4-0 to 4-1 to 4-2 to 4-3 to 4-4. It just looked like a bunch of people vacillating. So to me, when I watch something like that, Daniel Alfredsson is a smart man. He has the the ear of the owner, the president of hockey operations. But it is really important that they allow not just hey, how was your paddle ball the other day, and how you feeling about this? No. There's teaching moments here. Daniel Alfredsson played properly, and he can't watch that game yesterday. And it must have felt like before Jacques Martin took over when he was in Ottawa. That's the way the Ottawa Senators played back in the day. So from the Alfie point, if he's going to be around, he's got to get heavily involved, because somebody's got to affect a change. And also want to put out there, I'll let you comment, and we'll play DJ Smith's clip in a little bit here. Some people on social media, I know it's social media, think I have it out for DJ Smith. Again, I go, and I'll say this for Tarasenko, I was all over him training camp, and I don't even have to really address it. It's not a question of anything personal. You're watching something, continue along. And anybody that's watched the sport has to realize, and I do think, and that's where part of why I want to play the pregame video, not yet, we'll let you have your comment, Justin, is just more I'm looking at a coach that I'm watching during the game there, and I'm not expecting him to throw the sticks on the ice or to go crazy. But boy, oh boy, that looked like a group yesterday that was just absolutely paralyzed when all of a sudden Detroit started coming back.
No, 100%. It's just, I think, a lack of attention to detail and hitting the right notes during the game. I know he talked about yesterday wanting to use the guys that are going because they're, in Europe, and some guys might be tired in that. But I just like your in-game adjustments aren't there. And I don't think you're talking to the guys about the right things or at all on the bench. It seems like, so it's frustrating because it's the same thing over and over and over, and they're getting wins regardless. So it's like, what if the other way was, this good defensive team, right? This team is going to score. Everyone we talk to, we've said it on the podcast, this team can score goals. It'll continue to score even more as they get players back. I like their lineup for the offensive side of the puck, but it needs to change, and I don't know what else more you can do at this point. It hasn't changed. So
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Justin, and that's a part of, and again, you're right. And I do love the adjustment part of it. It's often a phrase that's used in football, and for the New England Patriots, you watch Bill Belichick, and I wouldn't know the first thing about football, but it was always talking about what's going to happen. They, first of all, want the ball back. They're going to change the course. Adjustments usually defensively. In hockey, it's certainly when you see a system, you see things that are happening, and when you don't see a change from an Ottawa side, I totally agree with you. So we'll see. We'll also get on talking about some of the players, some of the real positives from yesterday. And as you said, they're 6th in the league now at 5-on-5 scoring. Last year, they were one of the worst. That's a real positive. They're doing some things there. They can score some goals. Now they're giving up a bunch 5-on-5, but I still look at it as a team that in the personnel side, they're better than Detroit, as they should be. So let's cue that clip. Now we're just going to see a picture of DJ Smith, but I want the audio. And it's a little bit more if we could see the video, but we're just going to listen to his pregame chat yesterday as he was in the Sens room, teeing up, first of all, the notes of the game, and then handing it over to Alfie to announce the starting lineup.
We talked about the focus. Every shift early on here, neutral zone, we're above people, we're clogging them so we can break out. All right, D-zone coverage, we're denying the back, and then when we break out, you got to talk. Don't just give the puck away. Talk to each other so we can have it, and then we have lots of speed. From there, in the O zone, we got to go east-west. Hang them on the net, and then F3 all night. There's no odd man rushes. Make them earn everything they can. We got Alfie, special guest here. Going to come on the bench. Going to get the lineup here tonight. Come on up, guys.
Thanks, guys. It's an honor. Thank DJ for giving me this opportunity. Today we have Corpy starting in net. Right. Subi. Sandy. We got Joe. Timmy. And G. All right, boys. So... Good start. Smart early, everybody get going. Have some fun.
Yeah, and we see this scripted a lot. And for social media, it's kind of a new wave that we're seeing. And from the Sens perspective, Justin, they do a really nice job. But when I watched the actual video and then I watched kind of the post game, it became a little bit hollow because it is a fine line of you are being filmed, although I think DJ Smith at this point is pretty much used to that. But it is going through on and understanding the cue of there was nothing that he said there. And what was very awkward, again, these are basic bullet points. When you're reading it off of a cue card, kind of piqued my curiosity because, again, these are the simplest points that you'd be pointing out in minor hockey to kids, Justin. Then with what we watched and then kind of coming in post game, you're saying all the right things as far as we reacted, we played tight. But I think in his own mind, and for everybody else that's watched the game and kind of saw the whole thing, none of what he's talking about was a reality of what the Ottawa Senators did yesterday, other than feeling like, oh my God, thank God we ended up winning that hockey game.
No, I agree. It's just we keep harping on it, but it's true. It's just
I know
it's just lip service. Unless you're doing it day in and day out of practice, becoming habits. This needs to be natural. This needs to be innate in you that you don't even think about it. You know how to play properly. It's to the point that the coach shouldn't even have to say it. Honestly,
exactly.
In the room. And that's where you need to get, and you don't get that unless you practice it, repeat, get your reps, do things properly. Like to the point of like, in my mind, you should be doing like battle drills and controlled scrimmage and just explain what's going on and what you just did wrong on the ice, and it's just something, it's teaching. It's not, and it's effort level, but it's teaching and having guys understand what they need to do. And showing them on the ice, because obviously just doing video and stuff is not working. So I'm just kind of trying to come up with a way that this can work, but it's frustrating because you see the ability, and these guys, you got to convince them that they're better players playing both sides of the puck, and they will be. All the best players, for the most part, had to be convinced a little bit at some time.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that. Now, great that they got the win, but that is not a consistent way to win games. So they could be a great team to watch. And I sound negative here now, and that's not what I want to be, but it's just, it's insanity, like doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's not happening. And something as little as like taking a timeout in a second could have helped the team as well. And I just don't understand the thought process going on, I guess.
Exactly. And after we have Nick on, we'll again kind of focus on the other side about the world-class talent, about the Timmy Stützle show, talk about some of the other things. But it is, for anybody that's watching, a realization of, okay, well, this is the time of year where teams can be a little bit looser. The negative or positive is maybe you can tighten it up, and some teams do tighten it up. Ottawa doesn't have that history, because as we get to the 20-game mark, the 40-game mark, then that changes. Now I think you could be even more trouble when it comes to the Ottawa Center. So that's why we're harping on this. That's why we're looking on it. And also, when you say that, hey, when you go through kind of a checklist, Sanderson's a natural, but as far as the forwards themselves, you can point to Brady Tkachuk, you can point to Stützle, you can point to a number of players there. Like, to me, kind of the player this year that if I want to say, hey, who's been the best Ottawa Senators player? Who is a guy that seems to make things happen or good things happen whenever he's on the ice? That's actually been Matthew Joseph. That's been the one common denominator of a tremendous work ethic, very good speed, more attention to detail, actually playing with a purpose. And that to me has been really interesting to watch, because I would have never thought that he would end up being the common denominator. But that's been the positive, and that shows you that, again, as you said, physically guys are more than capable of doing it.
Exactly. I wouldn't be harping on it if I didn't think they're able to do it, right? Like, exactly. If I thought this team was shit, it'd just be a different conversation. But you see that they can do it, that that they have the ability to do it. It's just now implemented, and that's all. And I think a lot of fans want that too. I think there's a lot of frustration built up. I think, when they leave the arena, great, okay, we got 2 points, but there's always that but. And I don't think the fans are wrong in this case, because and all the we're doing it, we're saying it, other people I'm listening to talk about it as well. So, and even like on TSN they talk about it. So something's got to change here. That said, you're .500, and you haven't been playing the best hockey. So there's room to grow, and that's kind of where I'm at.
No, it is. And that is, as you said, the hockey world. Cheryl Pounder did a great job of it yesterday, and it has been continued to be pointed out. And nobody plays perfect. There's not this idea like you're going to lock it down. It is just understanding in the salary cap world, a window opens for you to be a competitive hockey team. And when you say that, and I'll say from an opportunity standpoint, this should be a playoff hockey team. And with attention to detail and with the talent they have, and I thought was also very interesting in a game like yesterday, because of the European element and because of Ville Husso not being there, I thought the Reimer situation in itself was bizarre, where basically at not even halfway through a hockey game, you're down 4-0. In the case of the Ottawa Senators, you're up 4-0. To me, the cue to pull the goaltender, not always the third goal, but the fourth goal, first of all, it's usually too late, which maybe in this case they thought, you know what, we're not going to play the backup goaltender Lyon in the back-to-back situation because they play today against Toronto. So let's leave Reimer in there. And I thought to myself, okay, well, he's going to stay in here. Sens are going to win this one walking away. And I also thought when it's 4-0, then it starts creeping back. I really thought, well, Reimer's going to give up a clinker here at some point. Now, you can argue a little bit with the Timmy Stützle winning goal, kind of a funny one in ducking his head. But that circumstance of him staying in, and credit to him as a veteran goaltender, you know when you don't have it, you know when you're basically being sacrificed to stay in there. And he actually rallied as he has his whole career just to kind of keep it close. And at the same time, hey, for Korpisalo, for a sample size of work here in Ottawa, I thought, again, was really good yesterday. They give up a lot of quality chances, even at the start of the hockey game, even when it's 4-0. And I look to him and say, hey, you know what? He's been a real stabilizer for the Ottawa Senators so far from what we've been able to see when he's in the net.
Yeah, it's been good to see. I was a little questionable on the signing just because he hasn't played a ton of games over the course of a regular season. And I guess you were hoping Forsberg could balance that out. So I'm happy with that. There's that's kind of not the least of my worries, but yeah, it is. I'm happy with where that signing has turned out this year. We'll see how it continues to go as he gets more games. But I'm hopeful. And it seems he seems like he has something to prove too. And I'm sure that the Talbot playing good in LA, even though that's probably a product of their systems and stuff, I think that probably gives him extra motivation as well to kind of prove himself. So it's now they need to give him some help. And like maybe Alfie too kind of gave a little shot at the players and the coach about the heart attack in the room after, which was pretty funny. But it's true. So you just gotta bear down. And there's a Minnesota team coming up, which you can probably score 3 goals and win the game if you allow less than that, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out and respond to that. Letting in 4 goals in a row.
And for the goaltending side, it is for Korpisalo. I've liked him. Now the sample size, as you said, not the biggest. He had 500 numbers with Columbus last year. Was on a fire with LA. I think 9-2-1. Okay in the playoffs, but I still like the signing. And this is a bit of the trick. And I understand for Pierre Doran where he was at the time, Justin, is that didn't necessarily marry up with since Craig Anderson's left. And really before that, you've had so many options, tried so many different things. Unfortunately, internally, they haven't been able to do it. You brought over Ben Bishop, flipped him out. The Robin Leonard situation went sideways. You flipped him out to Buffalo. And internally, without developing any goaltenders, you suddenly found Forsberg after the crazy Murray situation. But you also recognized, and this is where I do respect this one. Now, you have to be right. And we're seeing what's happening with Edmonton right now with Jack Campbell. But you have a spot here where you've signed a guy. You had to. Sogard's not ready to be that guy. And we don't know if Forsberg is really capable of being a number one. So you've made your bed. In a perfect world, as he moves along, hopefully as a number one gets you to a playoff, Sogard emerges. He hops into that spot. And then, hey, we'll see what ends up happening with Forsberg. But I understand it. From what I've seen so far, as far as the sample size, I'm comfortable with his play. I'm comfortable with his approach professionally, his athleticism. And then it is, hey, I'm very confident that if they're playing better in front of him, that there's no reason. And especially after watching a guy like Talbot last year, technically is an excellent goaltender, athletically is not very strong. So you totally know, in my estimation, I'd still take Korpisalo over him. All you got to do is show in front of you to be a little bit better, and then we're going to be good to go.
No, I agree. Also, shout out to Sogard, who's having a hell of a year in the AHL. I think this is perfect for him. To just get a bunch of games and continue to work on his play and his strength. But I think he looks to be like the goalie of the future. At least he can jump in maybe with Korpisalo next year, if that's the case. And I mean, they had Andy, right? So it was a fine line of like having a guy here that's going to push him or a younger guy, but then once it was kind of the younger guy's time, you had Andy. So you always had that in the back of your mind. He was so good for you over time that you couldn't kind of change that up. But I think that, they got the myth from the Finnish myth there, Merlinen and Sogard. I think they look okay in the future here for goalies. Yeah. So if one of those guys turns out, it would obviously be a good thing. It's tough now to sign goalies. I mean, very rarely does a goalie have back-to-back and then let alone back-to-back-to-back years that are very good. There's only like 5-6 guys that do that consistently. The other ones are, kind of, they have an okay year, then a good year, an okay year. And a lot of that might be the team they're playing for as well. But it definitely, goals are up. And save percentage is down for a lot of guys. So to find a guy that can play 65 games now or 60 games or whatever it is very tough. Those are usually the good young studs or the guys that have been doing it for a bit. Even a guy like Vasilevsky, getting a little more injured, and he's played a ton of hockey. But yeah, seems like the Russians are taking over here on the goalie side too, which is interesting.
They are, and that is the age-old question, Justin. As you go through from a goaltending perspective, and you look at the models, how to go about it. Do you have a Shesterkin to Vasilevsky to Sorokin? Connor Hellebuck has certainly been very stable in Winnipeg. These guys are all draft picks. They've all been developed, been brought along. You go back to recent Stanley Cups, and of course you end up having the Tampa Bay Lightning, but you had Colorado, who used a guy like Kemper, and then from an experiment standpoint, that's where you try to argue and debate and try to figure out, first of all, what goaltender fits from a salary cap standpoint. Then you look at the Vegas model, and you just basically throw all of your theories out the window of how this is going to work, how it's going to help, and then see what they're able to do this year with Hill coming back and the numbers that they're putting up. I thought hey, is this going to be a one-hit wonder? Well, no, not the case at all. So from the Sens perspective, as you pointed out, they try to develop and going back as well. Hey, the Ben Bishop pickup, this is way back, was a great one. As much of that was Robin Leonard not wanting to be in the minors and him and his dad being stubborn and wanting to force him into the lineup. And hey, that went a little sideways, but that's a long time ago. And I certainly think at this point, Sogard is the goaltender of the future. Now let's get focusing on what, to me, when you kind of step back, and I'm looking at this from a hockey fan standpoint, knowing the intelligence of the Swedish hockey fans yesterday, of going to a rink and realizing this isn't the Nicholas Lidstrom, Zetterberg, Datsuk Red Wings, but it's still a talented group, fun group. But on the other side, in Timmy Stützle, and watching, and I would say this in a hockey game, we'll call that the goal of the year, in my estimation, batting the puck out of the air, putting it over the head, the timing, the game winner. But will also happen in a game like that. And what an absolute, and that's Andre Ringette, of course, with the Sens. What a photo that is. I mean, that feels to me, first of all, that should be up in the rink automatically. That should probably be on the wall at the rink, the Avicii rink in Stockholm, and certainly maybe even the Hockey Hall of Fame. What an absolute gorgeous photo. Yeah. But I don't think, first of all, there's been a better goal this year, Justin. But what about the play earlier in the hockey game? And he's coming across. Yeah. He's going a little right to left. Typical. Unfortunately, he ends up going down a little bit. He's on his knees, and he just throws an absolute backhand laser across the slot to Brady Tkachuk. Like, who in this, if you're going to talk about a play of the game, I'm not sure which one I'd even go with. So who else in the National Hockey League has shown that star power this year? Those were just absolute world-class plays.
Smart play, aware of where his guy is. Poor Ben Sherratt had a couple of tough shifts in the game. I think he'd like that game back. Anyways, Stützle, he's continued to show how good and skilled he is. I think the sky is the limit for this kid. I like his kind of makeup and his mentality. I think he wants to be a star, and I think he's showing that. Hand-eye. Someone I just saw, like, if he didn't play pickleball, he wouldn't have got that goal. But what a good goal. Big goal after everything that went on in that game. I'm sure a big sigh of relief for everyone on the team. And the first one, I mean, what a play. A little bit of a hope play, but still knows that the guy is there, got something on it, perfectly on this stick. He knew what he was doing, right? But you just hope that it went through Sherratt, and it did. Timmy, I mean, what a player, what a pick. Happy they, kind of fell to him at the third spot. That draft is shaping up to be a really good draft, it looked like, and they might have the best player out of it all.
Yeah, and they really do. And that's where I want to focus a little bit more on Tim Stützle. And now we see Byfield coming along, which, again, this isn't cheering for or cheering against, although I look at Byfield and think to myself, there was some negativity there when I felt like when he was Ontario, what if he get drafted by Ottawa? People aren't as patient. Well, if Tim Stützle had gone to LA and was taken off for the New York Rangers, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So he's all of a sudden, I thought Byfield when he came in last time looked great. Lafreniere's finding his way. Yeah. We can go probably as deep as 15 or 16 in that draft. Goalie with Montreal. The only unfortunate is the Amarov gentleman who passed away with the Leafs. When you look at that draft, some of the names there, including Holloway, Jarvis. But back to Timmy Stützle. And with Brady Tkachuk, this is also the factor of coming in and being the face of the franchise. I think we can all agree that Lafreniere, even with the Francophone background, I don't see him interviewed a ton. Maybe he'd be a tad different. But to me, he's not going to have the flair, the good looks. Byfield seems like a real shy kid. From a marketing standpoint here in Ottawa, can still remember the newspaper way back in the day when Alexei Yashin was brought in. Then to some extent, on Alexander Daigle would be my comparison to Timmy Stützle. Unfortunately, the hockey didn't match up, right? You had the good-looking fella. There was something really special, but right away people realize, okay, the money that you paid the player, everything else, then you move along as a franchise. And because Alfie came a little bit later, was a later pick, Justin, he didn't have that sexy feel coming out of Sweden like Forsberg and Sundin. And then I'll even say this, because the greatest player in the history of the Ottawa, well, I shouldn't say greatest, but Alfie is, but the greatest, from a standpoint would be Erik Karlsson. Couple of Norris trophies. But even with Erik, for being a smaller player, for where he was drafted in the NHL, it was kind of a bit slow to burn. Now, when the All-Star game came to Ottawa, was the first time I heard people talking about a Norris trophy. Now he started taking off. But let's be honest that within the world itself, I don't know that the hockey world talked about Erik Karlsson till 2017, till they were talking about saying, hey, my God, this guy's right there with Crosby and McDavid. I just meant on a global scale, Justin. I'm not talking about, but the part with Tim Stützle that's very different is I think a bit of it is where he was picked. I don't think that the way it was done with the whole Jeopardy thing, the good looks, the flair. My point being is that this guy, to me, has been on the hockey radar much quicker than we see with other players in other smaller markets. And yesterday was not, I want to say a coming out party because people are aware, but that was just an incredible showcase. And I can only imagine around the world and in Europe and everywhere in general, just once again, the amount of people that are saying, wow, that guy is a face of a franchise. He is just absolutely starting out in his journey as a great player. And when we start talking about him, we start talking about where he's at. He's probably pacing for about 117 points. What an absolute stud, and what a nice face of the franchise that is to go along with Brady Tkachuk.
I mean, a pick like that changes your franchise. I think he's, this kid from Germany with Draisaitl doing well. I think it's intriguing to see him from other people. I just think that you're starting to see some of these German players. They're very good. You got Lukas Reichel. It's interesting. I think you need to get over there. We talked about that yesterday. Get over to Germany. I think it's starting to there's a little wave there, and you might not change a lot, but if you could get a few extra good players, they train in soccer, so they're good feet, good hand-eye, good skill. It's interesting. But to me, he has the mental makeup to be a star. He's already showing that. I like to see a guy 5 years after his draft to see kind of where everyone is and slots in from that draft. But he's already shown that. Plus, he's going to continue for the next 2 years to be even better. It's a treat to watch. I mean, with Erik, I think it was just a little different. Ottawa, we knew how lucky we were. I mean, you could watch him all day. You could just literally go to the game and just watch him, and it was worth your ticket. But his coming out party was that Stanley Cup Finals, Eastern Conference Finals run. He was an absolute superstar. I think TSN had him second or third best player in the world, and obviously best defenseman. I think that when the Sens make the playoffs, I mean, it's going to be big because, Brady Tkachuk's going to be talked about even more. That guy's going to be a force in the playoffs. Timmy Stützle is going to be so much even better by the time they make the playoffs. It's going to be great. Jake Sanderson is going to be talked about a ton. Even Chikrin, he's really shown what he's capable of, coming from a bad team to a better team, logging big minutes at times, using a shot, playing on the power play at times. There again, they just need to take that step, and that step is being better in your own end, playing smarter, playing like you are a top 5 team in the league, right? Just watch the way Boston plays. I mean, you could say they don't have as much talent at times as even the Sens, and they just play the right way, and that's a built-in culture. LA Kings are the same thing. Vegas, it's just built into their culture because of hard coaches that demanded that. And we don't have that yet at all in Ottawa. But I think if you can foresee the future with that, you're like, by God, we have a really good team here.
Yeah, and it is interesting how that's passed along. And a few things on the Boston Bruins, it was instilled. Give some credit to Claude Julien. Then Bruce Cassidy came along. What we don't see, and this is the difference what's happened in St. Louis, is that their next phase of players that have come along aren't playing properly. Now, last year you had Craig Berube's situation where he called him out, Justin. That didn't transform. Where you say from the Boston Bruins, all that pride, all that passed along by Bergeron. Now, you still have Marchand and Pasternak, which is huge, but Charlie McAvoy has come in and has played the game properly. And that comparison to Thomas Chabot. And I'll also remember when Claude Julien took over the Boston Bruins, that was a sideways turn for Tyler Seguin. That was not going to be Tyler Seguin coming into the National Hockey League, playing center, making a ton of mistakes, doing whatever he wants. He was shifted to the wing. So I will say this from a Sens perspective. You love Timmy Stützle, but be ready. If a coach is going to come in here and all of a sudden, I mean, there's a game yesterday. He's below his own goal line trying to go the length of the ice. And that's the part. And that's going to be the tough love. And that's one of the things that's hard in the season and for the fans. And I'm not careful at all, but it's funny. You mentioned something bad about Timmy Stützle. I think on the Sens that people go bonkers more for him than any other player, but there's going to be some tough love coming. And to the German thing, this is what, and I love my history, and I'm not going to go back to World War II. I'm not going to go back to that. But when I first started scouting back in the day, Justin, one of the first World Juniors I went to was in Boston. And all of a sudden, the German program, and we're talking 1996, had a wave of players coming. Marco Sturm, Jochen Hecht, and then there were some other spare parts that ended up playing a little bit in the National Hockey League. It felt like it was coming. Well, here we are 28 years later. I don't believe any of that, to be quite honest with you. And now Draisaitl and Stützle, a whole different animal.
Yeah, they're a little better than those guys.
Well, they are. But my point being is that I don't know that necessarily is the way for the future. When you look at the GEL and the German Hockey League, it's all Canadians. Yeah. It is getting better. They are developing, but the sample size, and these guys, along with Side, are all Mannheim products. It's a small sample size. And I say that as well, because when I first started watching the World Junior, you had the Czech Republic, you had Slovakia, you had 8 really good hockey countries. What are we down to now? And I heard the Batman talking yesterday about the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey. We don't even have Russia. And if we don't have Russia, we're to Finland, Sweden, the United States, and Canada. Yeah. No, but I'm just saying that's politically where we're at. So I hope it is a growth, but this is also why I say from a Sens perspective, or a perspective of growing the game, and they're playing games in Australia or going over to Asia. If you want to grow the game of hockey, you go into, and I know Char is doing it back in Slovakia. There's been some Czech coaches that have gone back. You need money. You need coaches. You need funding. You need these kids that don't have any money in a place like Slovakia. Every reason not to take on soccer, where I just need a ball and some running shoes to grow the game again. So if you're having tournaments and you're having games, get into Central Europe and try to grow the game again, because it was so exciting. I mean, that run that the Czechs had and the Slovaks had and all these players. And like I said, right now we're down to Sweden, Finland, United States, Canada, and a little mix of the rest. So hopefully this will be something positive in Germany.
Yeah, no, it's tough, but I think it's worth exploring, because you have 2 superstars, and when you have role models for kids, I think that does make a big difference.
Absolutely,
yeah. So I think there's that opportunity with, if they were just some average players in the league, I wouldn't necessarily feel as strong, but I think that when you have 2 absolute superstars, you gotta take your chance there. If you're going to Europe anyways, why not do that, and talk about growing the brand and growing the game. I think that would be super important. It takes time. We know that it takes time. You look how far the US, it took forever. And then it's just a wave of it. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen in Europe, but it's, if you don't try it all, it's never going to happen. So,
no. Yeah, also to what you're saying, though, and this is, again, for the National Hockey League, chasing your tail. Hey, first of all, in the United States, hockey is a rich sport. For the predominantly, if you want to be honest, it's a rich white sport. That's what it is. There's lots of money in the United States. It's a fraction of size. Not even close athletically to the other. But what did they decide? They decided on their very best of the best. Their 0.01%. They're going to do the development program. They're going to put their money into it. Those families have the money to play hockey, and if they don't, they'll pull them along. It's such a tiny percentage. If you want to change, and you go historically, what happened back in the day with Czechoslovakia, then the Czech and Slovak, that was basically post-Soviet. Those were the schools. Those were the schools where the kids went to play hockey, had equipment, had meals, had funding. If you want to get into grassroots and talk about growing the game, you're talking about going up and setting out sports schools that basically from 5 years old, just like they do with the soccer, where you go. This idea to go over and have an exhibition game and a kid's going to try the sport, the National Hockey League. Now, I'll say that, and let's just segue into it, because I'd never asked you, so I'll ask you. This World Cup of summer hockey stuff. Now, I did go to the 96 tournament. I went to the 2004 tournament. To me, complete waste of time. I have no time for it. The players don't care. Winning that trophy, nobody knows where it's at. It means nothing. What's your thoughts on the World Cup of summer hockey? Or of all things, why would you have this thing in the middle of February when it means nothing and you're in the stretch drive?
For me, I would do it completely different. I've thought this way for a long time. I would have your Olympics, obviously, best on best. Then I would do kind of like soccer does, like a Euro Cup. So I would just allow Europe to do their thing. And then I would do like an 8-game series, Canada, US here. So because Europe, they love beating other European countries. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And it's a little different. So North America, we get that Canada, US rivalry. And then Europe can have their own rivalry and kind of make it like a Euro Cup. And ideally, it's best on best in both of those, and you might have to do that in the summer. But I think that would be a very cool event that you could get the Europeans on board as well as North America for fans. But I think we need a best on best. I mean, talk about growing the game. The best thing you can do to grow the game is to have a best on best. And imagine Connor McDavid playing with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon on a line, or you know what I mean? Like it would just it would be wild to watch for all fans, especially young fans, getting to see their favorite players on the ice together. I think it would do so much for the game. I also think having the European only section would help grow the European sports too. You can have those guys over there selling the sport, selling the game, and a little more equal competition. But I think you have to have Russia involved. I mean, I don't like to get political with my sports, but what the hell does it matter? Get the best on best. This is good. We're into show 10, and I'm going to stop you right there. Russia cannot be involved, and I'm big into politics, and it does cross over in this case. I'm not. And again, first of all, the sanctioning of it, you would look foolish that would actually hurt the sport of hockey if you involve them. I wouldn't have any interest in having Russia at this point. Now, I'm very pro-Ukrainian. Now, as far as what you just talked about, here's a bunch of good hockey and good.
But here's
players that have nothing to do with it play the sport. Just have them play. That's in my mind. I don't like to talk about all the other stuff of it. I would just like to see best on best. And that's where I'm at. But, and I understand the other side. I understand your side completely. But
I was going to say at the Olympics they come in, they don't play under the flag. So whatever you want to do there. But the other part that you're talking about though, and that I've never said makes any sense, is a few things. First of all, the World Championships exist. It's a big money maker. The World Championships in Europe means more than anything. Holding a World Cup of hockey in Europe is not going to mean anything to the people there. And then the part that you never have to forget, Justin, is we're not talking about what we have in soccer. Soccer is now talking about expanding from 32 to 64. Like the World Cup Cup of hockey in the summertime, if you eliminate the United States and Canada, which I'm not against an eight-game series, but even at that ship has sailed. When you say in Europe, so you go Finland, Sweden, Czech Republic, Germany, Slovakia, then you get into what? If you want to include Russia, and then you're into a couple of weaker teams, it's not good enough. They have the World Championships. If you're ever going to involve the National Hockey League, but when it comes to the Olympics, first of all, now, when you look historically, the focus of the Olympics right now, let's not kid ourselves. This has nothing to do with Europe and almost has nothing to do with Canada. The United States has never had better hockey players, has never had more faces of the franchise. 99.9% of the reason why the NHL should be at the Olympics is selling the American players, selling Matthews, selling as you go through every lineup, including Brady Tkachuk to, I don't know if Norris even makes it, to Jake Sanderson. Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk. But you're going through and you're selling the game. And the best on best means something to the players. So to me, when you talk about Olympics, that's something that's going to work. Trying to get together in Europe. And the other part, when you go back to that World Cup of hockey, they started some of those legs in Europe to go. Nobody had any interest. Like I said, I've been to the World Championships a bunch.
That's
the
why
fans there absolutely love it.
In my mind, it'd be a Euro Cup, but where it's best on best. But I understand that side of things too. It's interesting. They got it. The Olympics are the biggest thing that they need to be in. And the Americans are going to have a good team. I mean, having Brady and Matthew on the same line potentially would just be not too fun to play against at all.
No, and yesterday in the telecast, and they talked about it, and we've mentioned it earlier this week, that 2006 team in Sweden that ended up winning a gold medal was their last chance. For a guy like Alfie, would have had a great career, would have still probably been in the Hall of Fame, played in World Championships, lots of Olympics, I think played in 5, never won a Stanley Cup, and he not won an Olympic medal. And when you go back to Sweden and you see those guys, well, first of all, that triple gold club is incredible. Winning a World Championship, winning an Olympic medal, and winning a Stanley Cup. I was at World Championships, and it was amazing when all of a sudden Detroit was eliminated or Toronto. The TV company in Sweden was actually had a private plane ready for Lidstrom and Sundin to bring them back over to the tournament. That's how big it is as far as what it means to these countries. Now, the World Championships has changed. The ship has sailed a little bit, but yeah, when it comes to the Olympics, Justin, that ability to sell the sport, to have the best on best, what Bettman also talked about yesterday, they quite simply don't have a rink in Milan. And I know this would be really, really outrageous. And I know when you look at some Olympics, especially when it comes to some of the ski events, you have the ski event 2 or 3 hours away. I don't know logistically how that would work in Italy, but part of me thinks to myself, and again, I know you can't do it. Could you put on the Olympics in North America? Well, it's going on. You can't do that. But they've got to find a venue in Europe during the 2026 Olympics where, hey, whether it's in Italy or you just cross the border over into Switzerland, use one of the buildings there or some of the venues, do something to put that on. And at the same time, we've gotten out of Asia. So we're not as bad as far as the time of the games will be on. And I just think for the players themselves, but man, oh man, that United States roster, and I think for all of us as hockey fans, Justin, I think you feel the same way. Yeah. That thought of Canada and the United States, like I don't really like the Russia thing. Okay. And I don't even mean politically. I just mean as far as in playing. Sweden and Finland, who doesn't love them? All the other countries, a real best on best. We hate each other, playing for gold for right now, for what both countries have. Like, bring it on. That's what I want to see right now. And that's what you hope an Olympics would end up bringing. But we also know that has not been the case very often, if at all, when it comes to the actual what. I think 2010 would be the only time they faced each other in a gold medal game, right?
Yep, I think so. You know, it'd be a treat to watch. It'd be good for the sport. I personally am dying to watch Best on Best. It's been way too long.
But when you say Best on Best, though, like do you like the last World Cup of hockey? Did you enjoy that?
Best. No, that's
okay. You just mean Olympics? Yeah.
Or a World Cup where it is actually all the best players instead of having a young guns team and a team Europe. I don't want to see any of that shit. I want to see the best players playing for their country, playing against other countries with their best players. That's what I want. You could call it whatever the hell you want to call it. I just want to watch the best hockey possible. And this generation is missing that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really has. And I think for some of the players and the window and unfortunate, it would certainly, you look at a guy like Steven Stamkos, missed Olympics based on injury now, and Sidney Crosby, by the time we get to 2026, well, we'll let Hockey Canada decide it. Is he going to be good enough to make the team? I assume that he would be, but certainly Steven Stamkos probably not on the radar. So for the National Hockey League, different reasons trying to sell it. Feels like the PA and the league are on the same page of trying to grow the sport. And like I said, I just look to that American angle and really how different it's changed, of how proud the players are to play for the United States, all the success they've had with their under 20, under 18, under 17, how that's kind of transformed to the rest. And as far as the World Cup of Hockey, that is, and I know what you're saying, but it unfortunately goes back to, it doesn't mean as much for the players. And like I said, that triple gold club is such a big deal. And if the NHL, which they won't be able to because it's a money factor, the World Championships is a way to do it, but they're never going to allow the National Hockey League in there because of the revenue.
But the first tournament you ever do outside of the Olympics or anything when you first start it, it's never going to mean as much, but the hope is to make it mean something over time, I think too. And that might be hard when you have the Olympics. That changes stuff. In soccer, you don't have the Olympics, so the World Cup is everything. But if you're not going to the Olympics, you have to have something, right? But really my number one choice is the Olympics. And if that would be the goal, I think.
Yeah, but the problem is that when you're, like I said, going back to what you just said, the Euro, the designation for that, a couple of things. First of all, you get into, as I said, you are involving the best players. That can't necessarily happen with hockey unless you break down the league. But even what comes in the soccer side of it, the qualification phase for these national teams is an incredible buildup that hockey's not capable of doing. The World Championship's already being in place. Like I said, the 96 tournament was fun, but by the time 2004 and 2012 came along, a lot of players, and when you talk to the players themselves, it just doesn't mean the same as winning a gold medal, winning an Olympics, or winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
so
because they also had the Olympics then, though. The
Olympics for sure. But I know what you're saying, trying to grow.
They haven't had the Olympics, so like I would say is number one is the Olympics. But if you're not going to the Olympics, you got to give us best on best, or at least attempt to, I think. But my number one thing would be the Olympics.
Yeah. To me, and then, I love having this debate with Liam McGuire, and you go back to as a kid, and you'd be a little young. I'm young for 72, but certainly my memories back to 1987. But that also is where you worried about the one World Cup. I think in '84, Canada ended up playing Sweden in the final, and by the time that happened in the best of game 3 series, you're like, give me the Russians. I want the Russians.
Yeah.
If it isn't that final, if it isn't that rivalry, it doesn't end up mattering. Now where we're at now, you don't have that. You don't have the same thing. It has to be United States against Canada. So we'll see on best what they do. And I also say, hey, the National Hockey League, the evolution of the game itself, the playoffs have gotten so good. When I say, hey, do you want best on best hockey? I know it's not the countries, but the top 16 teams in the National Hockey League, they give me that for 2 months. So that's certainly the way I felt for a long time. And like I said, Olympics all the way, grow the game, understand what it means for the players. And I think for most players now, and you'd say for a Connor McDavid coming in the National Hockey League, he would have grown up, and a checklist for him would have been, well, I don't know for sure if I've won a Stanley Cup by X time in my career, but I sure would have thought I would have played an Olympics by now, right? And that was the part that they all grew up watching. Yeah. And as you talk about inspiration for a game, and I guess I'll even say from a German standpoint, that's where I think you could even go next level as well, 100%. Where, hey, watch Draisaitl and Stützle wearing that jersey, playing for their country, knowing how that resonates in Europe. That's the ability. That's the way you end up trying to grow the game.
100%. And that's why I want to get Europe involved more and have the best on best, because I think it does make a difference over there. Yeah.
Well, and that was the part of watching, as I said, the game yesterday. I do appreciate with the National Hockey League. It's so cool how when you go back to the forefathers like Boreas Salming and the way that was celebrated yesterday, how that collision course of North America and Europe, and how here we are in 2023, it has brought out the best of all worlds. You've got the speed and the skill, but you've also got the engagement. And for anybody that's watched games in Sweden, the tactical game in Sweden is very good. Unfortunately, most of the games as you go into the men's league they're 2-1. It's like watching soccer, right? It's not. And when you see
what should go watch a game.
Well, yeah, no, but that's a good point. But you're right, actually. No, you're right, though. You're absolutely right, Justin. It's highly intelligent, and that's one of the things watching Alfie. And that was also a difference in kind of critiquing the teams yesterday. I don't think Detroit's very good in goal. I don't think on the blue line they're all that great.
No.
The one thing I did notice that is completely different, and I think it's a bit personnel related, but it's also tactically related. The 5-on-5 transition to the Detroit Red Wings is so different than Ottawa. And when you watch them come up the ice together, the way they're able to support each other and enter the zone, that has been one of the things that drives Sens fans crazy. But I've also got to say to myself, I don't know that the Sens have all the personnel for that. Whenever Stützle's on a line with Joseph and somebody else, I feel like they can do that. I don't know if the other lines can, but that was certainly in watching yesterday, Justin, is that you just felt like they were playing soccer. And I know it sounds funny, the Sens were playing hockey. Yeah. And the way they open up, you mentioned the other day, open up lanes, it was just different the way Detroit was activating. I think the fans would appreciate that.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It just makes the guy with the puck have an easier time too. Whenever the other guys on the ice are creating those lanes for him instead of, the guy worrying about managing the puck and then also creating the lane to get the puck to the other guys. And it's personnel, but I got to think the way Stevie Y wants to play, so his coaches want to play, that's getting instilled in them, and they're never going to forget that. So as they improve as a team, that should just continue to get better and better. As their defensemen improve, because I don't like their back end, but I think it's coming. Alfredsson is a big guy that I think will be able to move the puck for them. He will play probably more next year, will be a full-time guy next year. So they're adding to it, but they're also not a finished product, but they're instilling that culture of how we want to play right now. And then, in 2 years when we're probably, peaking more as a franchise, then we're not going to forget that. We're going to continue to play that same way, but add that extra skill and better players. And then, they're going to be a better team because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is when you get into kind of the formula, Justin, and you work for teams. And, I kind of look at the Ottawa Senators and I ask myself, what's their identity? Well, their identity is certainly a lot of real good talent. Yeah. I also don't want to say that that's necessarily just all in the coaches, but philosophically, and you do go back to Kenny Holland and even back to Brian Murray, when you look at those Detroit teams, it became philosophical on what you were drafting, what the coaches wanted, what you wanted. And obviously you're able to do that with stability. When you have stability in ownership and management, coaches, players now, and their philosophy for a long time, which they were way ahead of the curve, was why don't we take that player that's a little bit undersized, maybe a Swede like a Zetterberg, who at 18 years old isn't fully developed physically, but we're going to take intelligence over necessarily size. And I think when you look at Stevie Yzerman, what he's doing in Detroit and what he did in Tampa to some extent, it's a model of that. Well, but as you pointed out, that takes patience. That takes ownership, being on board with. They're not all of a sudden, if you lose a few games, going to fire the general manager. New ownership can be a little bit different. You had the passing of Mr. Illich, but it really is establishing what is the criteria, what is the philosophy. And without a doubt, as you watch Detroit and what they're doing, I know they complained on the broadcast yesterday about having even young players playing the American Hockey League. They have done a model that they feel suits the Detroit Red Wings best. And as I said, from the Sens perspective, I don't mind it because they got a lot of talented players. I think in an ideal world, they have to figure out matching up what is their style and what is their identity going to be, which I think for any team is what? Well, of course, you're going to be accountable defensively, and they have enough talent to score. So it's there in the parts. It just doesn't feel like it's coming together when you actually watch the games 14 games into the year.
It's like a half-built house. One of my favorite books is The Cubs Way, and it's all about Theo Epstein and how he built the Cubs, but also how he built the Red Sox, and just what it meant to be a Cub. He's a Cub, and when that's what you want, it's a lot easier to draft, I think, too, and Boston does a good job. They're going to make misses, but they're going to hit picks as well because they have an idea makeup of what they want in the type of person. And then, that it could vary on skill because, you're drafting from rounds 1 to 7, but you want a mental makeup of a guy. You want a type of player as well. If you draft hockey sense, as long as they have the skill to match, chances are eventually they're going to play and help your team. And a team like Vegas, I feel like Mark Stone, a perfect example of a character guy, lacks skating ability, but he was so smart. Those guys find a way to play. And now you need good scouts to find those guys because hockey sense is harder to scout for a lot of people. Even, we're scouted with NHLers that said they struggled with it. But could pick out a good stride in a second, right? So each scout has their own abilities as well within that. But I'm a big believer if you draft ability, but with hockey sense, you're eventually going to be happy with your picks.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part, and the credit to the Sens organization over a number of years, I put them right up there when it comes to draft and develop. And it's not just about what they're doing on the off ice, the summer programs, the stuff that Randy Lee had set up back in the day, Pierre Dorion, to your dad, all the things they did. One of the things in this course of the rebuild, and you always have to be careful because it's easy to critique. And I think at times people feel based on media, you're trying to be negative. I don't feel that way at all. But the thing I've always applauded is if you go through the development program or plan for the Ottawa Senators, when I look back, and maybe one day we're getting close to the end of the hour here, we'll talk about Logan Brown. I don't look at Logan Brown and ever think to myself, well, the Ottawa Senators didn't get done for Logan Brown. No, Logan Brown didn't end up doing it. The Ottawa Senators, if you go through a checklist, and Norris is a great example, came in. Batherson, when he looked like he was going to make the team, went back. Tkachuk and Stützle and Sanderson have all hopped in. I can't think of a player, Justin, that they haven't brought along, given every opportunity to. And even in the case of JBD, whether he's going to be a player or not, this isn't any of this whole thing of, oh, they're holding you back or there's players in the way or they're being unfair to you. I thought Ottawa has done just a great job with that as far as, hey, you're not ready. And for Pierre Dorion, there were a few years, including keeping Alex Formanton as a 19-year-old, where he said, and a lot of guys will be saying, hey, you know what? Coach wants to keep him around. They sent him back to London, and that really set up his path, what would have been a very, very good NHL player had he not been mixed up in whatever the hell he's mixed up in.
Yeah. And Pinto, they've done a good job with. I think they're, from when they get drafted with this Ottawa Senators to by the time they get to the AHL, maybe even in the AHL, but that time in junior and college, I think the Ottawa Senators are one of the best in the leagues at taking care of their players there. And that's, you point at Shawn Donovan, who was leading the charge at that. And then you get a guy like Wade Redden to help on the defense. And I think it makes a massive difference. I mean, Chummy's one of the best guys in the game. And to have him around your prospects, just making them feel comfortable, but also challenging them. I remember with even like Formanton, Formanton's not Connor McDavid, but he could really skate. And we were always just talking to him about, watch this. How can you get a crossover and get the puck through the guy so you can kind of get around him? And it's just little things that you can work on. Go take after practice, come out with a bunch of pucks, ask a couple of the 16-year-olds to come stay on the ice and just work on some stuff. And it just keeps you honest, keeps you in check. And it also shows the organization that they care about you. These guys are assets. Like these are assets that you need to guide and take care of. And if you do the right job, that asset blooms in value. And that's how you got to look at it in a sense. And Ottawa, I think, does an excellent job that way. And a lot of credit to Shawn Donovan and even the scouts. If you take a guy from your area, they're going to, do you need anything? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We're here for you. And Sens, from one of the first development camp teams, they did a great job there, and they really teach you how to be pros. And that's been a long tradition for the Sens. And I think that helps as well.
It really does. And I remember getting drafted, and very different then, but didn't really have an opportunity to meet scouts or know scouts. And I had people showing up to games and talking to me, and then the guy would give me a business card afterwards. And again, your head's spinning as an 18-year-old kid. I'm like, who is this person? Yeah. And back to Shawn Donovan, here's a few things. First of all, let's face facts with the Ottawa Senators organization under Eugene Melnyk. A lot of players lost their pride. It was a running brand. It was a bit of a joke. A lot of people were like, what is going on with the Ottawa Senators? Shawn Donovan rolls in, and I know for Dono it was really, and I don't know him well, but it was pride in trying to keep the brand going, where he could have easily just said, you know what, enough is enough. Shows up with a smile on his face, shows up with energy. And now what has happened, and this is a Brady Tkachuk effect and so many other things that are happening, including new ownership, Justin, the pride is back in the brand. And let's be honest, for a while there, as you're watching Erik Karlsson walk out the door and you're seeing, and I'm not just talking about the rebuild, just the simple fact of what was going on behind the scenes with the Ottawa Senators in such a small market, a lot of people weren't proud of the brand anymore. No. And so a lot of credit to Shawn Donovan on that. And now back to the other side, Alfie's involved, and with the team itself, so many positives happen here in the last couple of years. So as I said, I agree with you, and it's nice. And it's one of the big reasons why Brady Tkachuk, and when when Colin White signed and people are like, well, you know what? He was one of the first to sign. I'm like, yeah, when his agent saw the offer, he probably scrambled so quickly to sign it. Nothing to do with that. But Brady Tkachuk deciding to sign on for 7 years was a real big fork in the road, where if him and his dad weren't sure about this program in Ottawa, you get him on a bridge deal. Who knows what's happening to the franchise? So
trouble. Well, it's Matthew, right? It's
exactly. And then all of a sudden you don't know what you're dealing with, and you don't know what's going to happen. And then he kind of has 1 foot out the door, and he's your captain. He's talking to everybody else. So anyways, I don't know what happened to the old Kipper here today.
Yeah, that's fine. Quick. Want to just do quickly on what we think tomorrow, and then I'm going to leave for my concert.
Absolutely. As far as tomorrow, Minnesota, I haven't watched a ton of. Now, I find it interesting because I think they're one of the better coached teams in the National Hockey League, and they have the power rankings for hot seats. And right now, as far as the Vegas odds, I believe it's DJ Smith and Dean Evison. The part with Dean Evison is when you talk about attention to detail, sum of parts. Now, maybe Bill Guerin, who, man, oh man, he's a straight shooter, looks at this and thinks it's time for a change, but they are a very good defensive club. They got Kaprizov as a star. We have Gus the Bus, who's absolutely been terrible, who will be playing tomorrow, I'm assuming against Korpisalo. So I expect a tight game. I think Ottawa will come out and be a little better, but attention to detail will be interesting, because that's certainly what the Minnesota Wild are all about.
Yeah, I think, it's weird. The coach kind of been talking about maybe on the hot seat a little bit, but their goalies haven't been great this year. And even Kaprizov, who I talk about Elias Pettersson. He's one of my favorite watches in the league. Just the way he plays is very nice looking. I got to think they come out and win tomorrow. Actually, I think they're going to be a little tighter defensively. I don't think Minnesota could score quite like Detroit can at times. And I think they'll probably take it to them a little offensively. So I'm going to go 4-2. Tomorrow.
All right, go with that, a little prediction. And I think from a Sens perspective, I expect them to be a tad better. I don't know what their mindset is. I think after regrouping, you'll also have a situation where Minnesota, of all teams, is going to be super fresh. They're playing the Saturday, Sunday. For fans out there, of course, we won't be on until Monday. It is an 11 o'clock puck drop. I don't think we mind that. So, Justin, another great week here, brother. Safe travels to Oshawa. For all the fans out there, of course, stay classy, Ottawa. And, of course, until next time, we'll look forward to seeing you on a Monday. Been a great couple of weeks here. Love the support, love the feedback, and enjoy your weekend. And for all the people over in Sweden, enjoy that. And we'll look forward to talking again on Monday. Over and out.
Later.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Simmer Down with Shawn Simpson on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.